Hello everyone! Sonic Adventure 2 fires on all cylinders of gaming. But what do I mean by that? Before we get into that, I will break down all the elements of Sonic Adventure 2. I will go over the different gameplay styles and give my opinions about them. I'll also mention the story from time to time when I think it is relevant, but I won't cover it in detail since I don't have a lot to add to the story other than I think it enhances the game very well. Without further ado, let's talk about Sonic Adventure 2. Hold on, the game hasn't even properly started yet and I already have many things to say. Let me just start by saying that I feel Sonic Adventure 2 has some of the best menus I've ever seen in any game. And I'm not just talking about the main menu here. For starters, there's a lot of personality in the menu and the music gets the player pumped up for the game. I'll give a few examples in rapid succession. The small dots in the background give off a vibrant atmosphere. Different characters can be selected to voice the menu. The story mode screen sparks personality of the characters with the way they are drawn and draw you into them. The characters will give their thoughts on the story unfolding. The level select map makes the environments in the game even more alive than they already are, and it is nice to see some thought was put into how the stages connect to each other. It is remarkable that even before you gain control of any of the characters, the menu alone makes the game already feel alive. Once you do choose to start the hero storyline and not aimlessly wander through the menu forever like I just did, the first cutscene starts, which has become an iconic part of the series. It's no wonder Sonic Generations included City Escape to its collection of stages, because jumping out of a helicopter and snowboarding downhill in San Francisco without any snow is an idea worth praising on its own, but the actual stage is a great introduction to new players while telling familiar players we're back. Sonic slides downhill, flees from the military and runs out a giant truck, and that's just a sequence of events. The gameplay is exciting during the snowboarding part, and once Sonic jumps off a snowboard, you get a safe space to get used to the controls that will be used for every speed stage in the game. There's nothing that can harm you before you go up the stairs, and once you do decide to proceed, there's only one basic enemy, so you can learn how to fight them. All I'll say about Sonic's basic controls is that I think he feels good to play. Sonic is responsive, and he can pass the terrain on the different stages to come with ease. I always try and see the controls of a character and the gameplay a character is used for in tandem with each other, since that makes up how you experience the game. For example, it makes no sense to exclude a jump button for a character that needs to jump, but then you take a look at Zelda. Similarly, I feel Sonic controls perfectly fine for the game he is in, and this is excluding the upgrades he will get, which enhance the game further. The only thing that in retrospect could be tweaked and seems to have been a topic of debate among fans is the downgraded spin dash compared to the first adventure game. But I have no problem with it. For one thing, the spin dash still seems powerful and you can reach places with it that would otherwise be hard or impossible to reach. You can also still gain speed with it relatively fast, which is the whole point, and you still keep a lot of control when in a spin dash. I think that adding the more powerful spin dash of the previous game would not have added much to what Sonic can already do in this game, but it might have been fun to mess around with nonetheless. After finishing the stage, Sonic has his first encounter with Shadow the Hedgehog. I think this cutscene is an excellent example of how to set up a rival and a villain in an effective way. This is caused by two things. First, Sonic, the protagonist, is built up to be at the top of his game in the opening stage. He is captured, but escapes, and without any problem. Sonic also just defeated Bigfoot, the first boss. Everything points to Sonic being in control of the situation until Shadow arrives. Second, Shadow, the antagonist, is shown to not only be on par with the protagonist, but to be better. Sonic is impressed by Shadow's speed, something Sonic rarely shows. On top of that, Shadow displays Chaos Control, a power that Sonic doesn't know about, and Shadow is constantly shown to stand above Sonic, even in cutscenes after this one. In the end, Sonic is captured once again, which brings us to the second playstyle. Reminiscent of Sonic 2, Tails rescues Sonic. Tails first has to fight Dr. Eggman and then starts the first mech stage. Similar to the speed stages, mech stages require you to get to the goal ring at the end of each stage. You shoot enemies to proceed and can chain multiple enemies at once. Doing this feels satisfying and also gives you a higher score. One topic of debate I've seen recently, however, is how the mechs control. I never had a problem with the controls in the mech stages. However, comparing Gamma's controls of the previous game to the controls here, there seems to be a trade-off, but one that makes sense. As Gamma, I find that I can more easily move around, but that it is harder to chain more enemies at once. As Tails and Eggman, I find it easier to chain enemies together, but that it is slightly harder to move around. This is a trade-off that makes sense because of the differing goals between SA1 and SA2. In SA1, the goal is to get to the end of each stage as fast as possible. Chaining multiple enemies together gains you more time, but it is not a goal in and of itself. You want a little bit more movement over accuracy as you move towards the goal as quickly as possible. On top of that, enemies are, more often than not, placed close to one another, making it easy to chain them without much turning, let alone precise turning. In SA2, the emphasis is placed more on the shooting. There are more enemies, more sorts of enemies, and the enemies are placed in such a way that you need more accuracy compared to SA1, since you need to turn more. As such, you want a little bit more accuracy over movement as you traverse the stages in SA2. In addition, if you go for an A rank, you definitely need as much accuracy as you can to get the most points out of chaining enemies. In conclusion, I find that both SA1's and SA2's controls make sense considering the design of their respective stages. Ultimately, all this does come down to preference and how you tackle the stages. I can imagine that some might like to trade SA2's controls for SA1's, and that they do not need that extra accuracy or feel that SA1's control facilitate enough accuracy anyway, especially if they don't care about their score. The last thing I want to go over is the health bar. Because of the longer stages and higher enemy variety compared to SA1, there's a higher chance of getting hit, which makes the inclusion of a health bar a nice addition. But the best thing is how the health bar works. You are still incentivized to collect rings since they refill your health, but it is not a big problem if you get hit, even multiple times and without any rings. Still, the health bar is not overly long and you still don't want to get hit. It's the best case scenario, forgiving but not too easy. The only playstyle that is left outside of the Chao Garden is treasure hunting. Knuckles and Rouge are fighting and arguing over the Master Emerald. Dr. Eggman then steals the emerald, Knuckles shatters it into pieces, getting us to the first treasure hunting stage. When I was a kid, I liked the speed and mech stages, while I didn't like the treasure hunting stages since I frequently got lost. However, over the years I have found some appreciation of them. The first thing I like is how Knuckles and Rouge move around. They can go surprisingly fast for a gameplay style that focuses on exploration, but it works well. They can run fast, glide, climb, dig and attack. All of these give you the tools necessary to find the treasure they seek. To find the treasure, the radar at the bottom of the screen helps you out. The closer you get to the treasure, the radar will turn from grey to green to yellow to red. And on top of that, Knuckles and Rouge will have an exclamation mark above the head when you're breathing distance away from the treasure. All this is well and good, but I can't help but to prefer the radar from SA1, where all radars would help you at the same time. That is pretty much my only complaint of the treasure hunting stages. Aside from that, I have one more comment which is both a praise as well as a complaint. I have to commend the development team for including a lot of variety to the treasure hunting stages. One time you find yourself in a big open space, in space, and another time you are in a flooded mine and have to do some puzzling. Another example is Rouge's security hall, where you have a time limit and have to switch between rooms to hit the switches before finding the Chaos Emeralds. There are more examples, but you get the idea. On the one hand, the variety here is outstanding, and no treasure hunting stage feels the same. The development team really did their best to make every treasure hunting stage unique, but there's a catch. Because of this variety, some stages might end up being a lot less fun than others depending on your preference. I enjoy the big open stages like Meteor Herd and Pumpkin Hill, but don't like Aquatic Mine. But then again, I also like Death Chamber, despite it being less open. These are my personal examples, but I've seen other people have similar experiences. This is not to say that Speed and Mech stages have no variety. In contrast, the variety within the different playstyles, not just between them, is a big part of my enjoyment in this game. Comparing City Escape and Crazy Gadget, Sonic finds himself in different situations, and the stages have different theming and obstacles, but I enjoy both stages. Eggman's Iron Gate and Cosmic Wall are different as well due to the lower gravity and transportation portions in Cosmic Wall and the more straightforward path in Iron Gate. The difference between the treasure hunting stages and the other two, aside from not having a gold ring and a bigger emphasis on exploration, is that the variety is higher compared to the other two. As a result, the treasure hunting stages are in my opinion the only playstyle with extremes in high highs and low lows. I think any disagreement on the treasure hunting stages in SA2 comes down to this difference in extremes and the fact that the radar alerts you one treasure at a time. Other than that, I like that the treasure hunting stages offer something not seen anywhere else in the game: exploration. Not just seeking treasure, but simply looking around is interesting and rewarding. Outside of the treasure and looking around at the environment, you can find item boxes, balloons, rings, extra lives, items that upgrade your basic movement and many more. The only thing I think that could be added to the exploration is learning more about the world and its history. Imagine walking around and finding a wall of text written by an ancient civilization. perhaps by Knuckles' ancestors, or seeing statues or other landmarks that give you a sense of history, similar to seeing Chaos' ancient images in SA1's Lost World. In a sense, this is already in the game. The Ark itself is a big center of the story in the game, and simply walking around this place where important events happened which caused many other events to happen is interesting, and I wish there was more of it. Imagine finding some equipment used to create Shadow, with a description on it from Gerald Robotnik, or finding Maria's diary or something, explaining her relationship to Shadow and her grandfather. But you know what, the more I think of this, the more I imagine Breath of the Wild, especially the diary thing. I think the treasure hunting stages are fine without such environmental storytelling in this game. Learning more about the world these characters live in is more an idea for if the treasure hunting stages or something similar related to exploration ever make a return. The only thing that would hold you back of exploring instead of finding the treasure as fast as possible is if you are afraid of getting a lower score, which brings us to the ranking system.
That was cool!
The ranking system is a first in SA2 and has become part of the entire series ever since. The idea is to get as many points as possible before reaching the end of the stage. You will receive a rank between A and E, and the character you're playing as even gives their own reaction.
Now you know why I am the best!
Each playstyle has their own way of keeping score, but they are largely similar. In the speed stages, you earn points by completing the stage as fast as you can, while also doing tricks, hitting multiple enemies with a homing attack without touching the ground, and collecting rings among other things. Doing this and receiving an A rank is extremely satisfying and gives an extra layer of mastery and excitement in an already action-packed game. In the max stages, the idea is the same, and chaining enemies will net you a lot of points. There is some risk reward involved in chaining multiple enemies with your mech though. To get the maximum amount of points, you have to hold aim for quite some time. However, if you get hit at any point during aiming, you won't hit a single enemy. On top of that, if you aim for too long, you also won't shoot. It feels satisfying to chain lots of enemies together, not just because you aimed at all of them, but also doing it without getting hit and within the predetermined time given to you. Even if in the end, it wasn't that hard to chain the enemies together, you never know for sure until you're already finished, giving more tension before shooting and more satisfaction after shooting. For the treasure hunting stages, you need to find the treasure as fast as you can to get the highest score possible. I'm a bit torn on this one, because on the one hand it makes sense to grade time, since if you found the treasure fast you probably did it right. On the other hand, the position of the treasure is randomized, which is good and a necessary inclusion I'd say, especially for replay value, but some treasure is easier to find than others, which hurts the ranking system since you are essentially rolling a dice every time at every attempt. The radar working one piece of treasure at a time is even more frustrating for the ranking system, since the feeling of being close to a treasure without you knowing it comes to the forefront when attempting to get a high score. I feel that detecting all treasure at once would solve most of the problems for the treasure hunting stages, at least specifically when it comes to the ranking system. In that case, when you're exploring, it is up to you to keep track of which places you visited and which places are empty and which places were close to one of the treasures, testing not only an extra skill but also rewarding you for that skill. In addition, it would be easier to say it is your fault for not finding the treasure fast enough for a high score. As it is now, the game is essentially holding you back until you find the specific treasure it wants you to find, even if other treasure is nearby. Despite my criticisms on the treasure hunting stages' ranking system, I really like the ranking system and I am glad it was included in the game. I'm also happy it got to stay in the series. I have a hard time explaining how good the inclusion of the ranking system is and how many hours of enjoyable gameplay I've spent thanks to how it is implemented. This generally goes for all ranking systems in every Sonic game, but Sonic Adventure 2 has one of the best, if not the best implementation of the ranking system in the series. However, there's one catch. If you do not care about any of the things I have just said about the ranking system, the idea of ranking at the end of each stage is probably not appealing to you. And I can completely understand that. Because of that, I think an option to turn scoring off would be a nice addition for some and wouldn't take anything away from the people that do enjoy the ranking system. In fact, as much as I love the ranking system, sometimes I want to go through the stage very casually, maybe even explore a little. Especially for the treasure hunting stages, exploring is actively discouraged with the ranking system on. If you do go and explore a little, there's a good chance Wooch will tell you,
I'm ashamed to call myself a hunter.
I guess you can also ignore it, but having an option would be best. As if the game isn't already packed to the brim with content, having multiple story modes, a strict ranking system, multiple missions for every stage and multiplayer, there's also a child guardian. Yes, I was one of the kids waiting for school to be over rush home, throw my bag in the corner and play the Chao Garden for the rest of the day. I'm aware of my nostalgia here, which makes it tempting to go on and on about the Chao Garden, but I'll keep it brief. The Chao Garden is a place where you can raise your Chao. You can enhance their stats with capsules and animals found in the main stages. Then, you can put their skills to the test by racing and fighting other Chaos. They can earn medals, and outside of competition, they can go to school and learn new skills. And their relationship with you will change depending on how you treat them. The programming behind the Chao Garden is something that to this day truly baffles me. Sonic Adventure 2 came out all the way back in 2001, and the Chao truly look and behave as if they are alive, even today. Looking at the credits, there was even a small dedicated team behind the Chao. For something that, outside of the emblems, could be considered extra and optional content, there's a huge amount of effort put into creating the Chao Garden, and I'm glad they did. Nowadays, I don't have the time nor the need to put hours into the Chao Garden, but it is a worthwhile inclusion. I'm surprised by how much I enjoyed the Chao Garden, even as a kid, since I never liked any type of simulator before. I think the difference is how Sonic Adventure 2 integrates the Chao Garden with the core gameplay and even leaves it up to you which playstyle and character you want to use to raise your Chao. That connection between core gameplay and extra content on top of the ranking system and extra missions per stage is what gives Sonic Adventure 2 rich content, and it is easy to put hours upon hours into this game. So, before I get into the how does Sonic Adventure 2 fire on all cylinders of gaming thing, I would like to briefly go over the story. As I said, I won't cover the story in detail, but I'd like to give some highlights. In this game, Sonic busts out of captivity not once but twice. Eggman is such a threatening villain that he outsmarts everyone and supposedly kills Sonic right in front of his friends. Eggman is easily at his best in this game. He sets the story in motion and he shows great leadership throughout the story. But what really makes Eggman Eggman is that he is a serious threat and a goof at the same time, not just one or the other. For example, at one point he enters the scene and despite Sonic being cocky at first, when Eggman calls the next boss, even Sonic has to respect that. But even after posing a threat, Eggman's plan backfires when the boss goes after him instead after calling it a piece of junk. Just like in my Sonic Heroes video, Eggman is a threat and a goof. A fitting antagonist for a protagonist that can be both strong and dependable, but also a bit cocky at times. Tails. Oh boy, did he grow as a character, especially considering his journey from the previous game. Despite Sonic just dying in front of him, Tails keeps his cool and faces Eggman head on. Even before this scene, Tails infiltrates a military base, rescues Sonic again not once, but twice, and is a key character through the entire story. Shadow is a great rival to Sonic, and it's no wonder he's such a popular character nowadays. Not only does he rival Sonic in every way, he has an interesting backstory and is in my opinion one of the most gentle and sensitive characters in the entire series. It's hard not to love him. I also like how the developers connected the story and the gameplay. When the island is about to blows up, you can just feel the urgency in the music and the stage, like the island crumbling for example. My only complaint of the story is that Knuckles isn't as integrated in the story as he should be, given that he is a main character. His stages are usually hard cuts away from the main story, but other than that, this story is amazing. And of course, who can ever forget the iconic I Found You Faker cutscene.
Enough to be
I'll make you eat those words!
Now that I've broken down all the elements of Sonic Adventure 2, how does the game fire on all cylinders of gaming? Well, let's go over what I just talked about. I've gone over the speed, mech and treasure hunting stages, which comprise the core gameplay, the story, which enhances the gameplay and sets up the characters well, like with Shadow and his backstory, the music, which eases you into the game, and art direction, as shown in the menu and how the characters are presented. These four elements are what I call the cylinders of gaming. You have probably made a guess by now. Games as a media make use of different forms of other media. The gameplay is in the middle, as it is the fundamental aspect of a game, but the gameplay can be enhanced by the story, music and art direction amongst other things. These are just broad examples, but there is more to it. If we zoom in, you can see that there are many ways a game can go about these things. For example, the gameplay can be almost anything. Any genre you can think of fits here. The same holds for the rest. The story can have a larger or smaller focus within the game as a whole and can be anything from a fairy tale to a horror story. There are all sorts of examples for the music and the art direction as well, but you get the idea. Within the Sonic the Hedgehog series, Sonic Adventure 2 is an example of a game that, in my opinion, fires on all these cylinders. The core gameplay is enjoyable, and the story, the music and art direction enhance that enjoyment. I can't think of any fan of Sonic Adventure 2 who would feel the game is the same without Live and Learn or City Escape as part of the soundtrack, or Shadow as a character in the story without its backstory, and of course the game without its art style. Extra content is also a reason people love this game. Think of the Child Garden. Now, the important question is, why does this matter? I feel that whenever people ask for another Sonic Adventure game, myself included, this is what they are referring to. I love Adventure 2, but the Sonic game that I am always hoping for doesn't necessarily need a distinction in playstyles like Adventure 1 and 2 did. I don't need speed stages or mechs or treasure hunting specifically. I wouldn't mind, but it's not the only type of Sonic game I am looking for. I hope for the game to be a great big adventure from beginning to end. I hope the game has enjoyable gameplay, that the music is good, that the story is interesting and that the characters and their journeys are sticking with me even after the game ends. That's exactly what Sonic Adventure 2 did, but I do not need a copy or an attempt to copy this game. Sonic Adventure 2 already exists. In fact, I feel that the reason some fans hold Sonic 2006 in high regard, again, myself included, is exactly because Sonic 2006 fires on all cylinders as well. It's unfinished, but the ideas are there. It has some of the best 3D Sonic level designs, good music, interesting story and lovable characters. Fans will often want to see a game have something new with something familiar mixed in, and sometimes a little surprise. Sonic Adventure 2 did exactly that. We have Sonic blasting through stages at high speeds, the familiar, but we also have this new rival looking to make things interesting. On top of that, there's also Rouge, another new character, and Eggman, of all people, is playable. These are examples of ideas I'm hoping for in new Sonic games. In 2006, they almost got it right. Sonic is back as usual, but Silver, a character with psychic powers and a stellar design, is looking to kill him. All these examples are exactly what I want from Sonic. I made these cylinders broad on purpose, because I don't think any long-running series should pin itself down to some arbitrary limitations. Sonic is no different. Nor is this something special that only Sonic does, even within its own franchise. Sonic Adventure 2 is far from the only Sonic game to do this though. Looking at Sonic 3 and K as an example, the core gameplay is enjoyable, building on the foundation laid in Sonic 1 and expanding on that. The game has a stellar soundtrack, an interesting story and gorgeous pixel art. All these together created a world that, when I play the game, I want to know more about and explore. The last thing I want to say about these cylinders of gaming is that I don't think every game needs to use all these elements just to be a good game. I don't think anyone would like to see the original Tetris have some sort of story. I simply feel that the most enjoyable Sonic games just so happen to fire on all of them. Even if these cylinders are a bit broad, they are what I am looking for in a mainline Sonic game. Now we have arrived at the conclusion. I was compelled to make this video because I wanted to convey why I love Sonic Adventure 2 so much. The more I thought about that, the harder it was for me to answer that question. I was thinking about other games, not just Sonic games, and thought about why I like those. For example, I'm a really big fan of the Zelda series, and despite Sonic and Zelda being different, I like both of them for pretty similar reasons. Both have core gameplay I enjoy, and then create a world around that gameplay to completely suck me into the game with its story, music and art. This is why I love Sonic Adventure 2 so much, and in addition, I wanted to show what I am hoping for in new Sonic games, even if it's a bit broad. In this video, I've skipped over the story for the most part, but if you are interested in my thoughts on the story in general, I recommend checking out my video on the themes of Sonic. In conclusion, Sonic Adventure 2 is a great game. After 20 years, I still enjoy this game, but not because it has speed and mechs and treasure hunting. It's a great game because it brings you a great big adventure from beginning to end and does this by firing on all cylinders of gaming. Thank you for watching and see you next time.